Finally, another determinant of how large an advantage a resource provides to a company is how well that resource is mobilized, deployed, and leveraged within the company. Failure to effectively mobilize or leverage a resource can severely limit the amount of benefit that it provides. One important question here is the question of synergy. Does the resource fit effectively within the firm's stock of other resources? Is the whole really greater than the sum of the parts? Are the different resources worth more together when used in combination than they're worth separately? Another way of asking this question is the company organized to exploit the resource to the fullest extent possible? Now, another important factor here to keep in mind about leveraging a resource is this. You want to consider, how can the resource best be exploited across a variety of markets? Often, the investment required to develop a resource is something of a fixed cost. And once that fixed cost is paid, the resource can potentially be exploited across a wide variety of markets at little or no additional cost. A great example of a company that does this very well is Disney. When Disney releases an animated movie for theatrical showing, it has paid a fixed cost to develop that property. No matter how many people come to see that movie, it still costs the same amount to make it. It's a fixed cost. And so they've developed that property at that fixed cost, and that property includes all the animated characters, the songs, the plot, the story, everything. But then, once Disney's made that fixed cost investment, then Disney aggressively seeks out opportunities to leverage that fixed cost investment across a wide variety of markets, such as television, videos, toys, games, video games, computer games, books, music, clothing, keychains, towels, bed linens, baby bibs, lunch boxes, posters, school supplies, theme park rides. It's potentially endless, the number of markets that they can leverage a property like The Lion King or Aladdin or any of their properties. It's potentially endless, the number of markets they can leverage them across. Beginning in the 1990s, with the introduction of its animated film The Lion King, Disney has built a well-oiled organizational unit within the company that's focused exclusively on the pursuit of synergies across all of the company's business units, so that every time the company develops a new movie or a new animated character, that new property gets leveraged effectively in as many markets and as many product categories as possible, which has resulted in big increases in revenues for Disney. The Lion King by itself has represented a multi-billion-dollar industry unto itself for Disney. Okay, so let's take a look at this issue of the mobilization, deployment, and leveraging of resources in the context of the example of the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center. In one sense, Xerox could potentially have had a really good fit between the Alto computer and its photocopier business. The computer and photocopier businesses, you could argue, they could potentially have shared a common sales force, they could have shared a common service and repair operation, they could have shared a common operation for training end users. Certainly, few companies at the time could have matched Xerox in terms of the sheer number of feet on the street. Its large sales force and service force could potentially have been a huge advantage for Xerox in getting the Alto computer system assimilated into corporations. Also, Xerox's many years of experience in office equipment manufacturing and assembly could potentially have been quite valuable to the Alto computer in terms of producing a high-quality, reliable product at low cost. So there is some sense in which one might view the Xerox Alto computer as potentially having a very good fit with the rest of the Xerox Corporation, which potentially could have yielded large synergies. However, these potential synergies were never realized, because there was another sense in which the two businesses were not such a good fit with each other after all, and which resulted in the resources around the Alto computer system not being effectively mobilized or leveraged by Xerox. The problem was that Xerox had a prior commitment to a different business model, a different way of doing business, a model that was built around paper and photocopying. Remember, Xerox's management had originally framed the Alto computer as the answer to the question of what would Xerox do if the office of the future ever went paperless. Now, of course, all these years later, we're all still waiting for that miraculous paperless office of the future to happen. But computers, of course, have resulted in more paper, not less. And so, potentially, Xerox, by framing it as the answer to the paperless office of the future, limited its ability to get this technology implemented. Because Xerox's photocopier folks could have said, hey, paper's still working. We're still selling photocopiers. There's no need for this product yet. And by viewing it as the answer to the paperless office of the future, Xerox may have unwittingly undermined the commercialization of this product by setting up a frame of mind where, well, we're going to wait around until the photocopier business declines before we're going to start to implement this product. That this product was a solution to a potential decline in the photocopier market. And so until the photocopier market actually starts declining, there's no reason to implement it, right? So Xerox potentially undermined its potential commercialization of this product by framing it as the solution to that paperless office of the future. Also, right from the very start, it undermined the commercialization in the following sense. The Alto system could have been viewed as a threat to the company's core business, right? Because to the extent that the Alto computer was successful in helping to facilitate that paperless office of the future in coming to fruition, it would threaten to cannibalize the company's core business in photocopying. So managers in the core photocopier business could reasonably have perceived this potential substitute technology as a threat to their survival, because to the extent that it actually does succeed in facilitating the transition to this imagined paperless office of the future, it would have facilitated the phasing out of the photocopier. At least that's how they could have viewed it. Now, in addition, there was also another reason why this resource in Palo Alto at the Palo Alto Research Center was not effectively leveraged. And that is that there was a vast divide, both geographical and cultural, between, on one hand, all of the buttoned-down East Coast Fortune 500 professional managers who ran the stable, mature, slow-moving photocopier business, and, on the other hand, all of those freewheeling West Coast nerds and hippies at PARC who were passionate about pushing the rapidly evolving state-of-the-art in computer science. Just two totally different cultures in totally different places. And so there are trade-offs here, of course, right? PARC was conceived as what some people would call a skunkworks. Now, a skunkworks is a separate R&D unit kept completely apart from the main commercial operations of the company and not responsible to the main commercial operations of the company in any way. So the fact that PARC was kept so completely separate as a skunkworks, so completely separate from the rest of Xerox, is exactly what allowed PARC to make such radical innovations in the first place so quickly. But that same thing that helped it to be so innovative was also what put huge obstacles in the way of commercializing those innovations once those innovations had been developed. So it both the skunkworks organization for PARC both helped in terms of generating innovations very rapidly, but it also at the same time hurt in terms of impeding the commercialization of those innovations once they were developed. So in the end, despite all of the enormous potential synergy one might have seen between the Alto computer and the photocopier business, none of that synergy actually materialized for Xerox because the company was just not organized in such a way as to exploit, deploy, and mobilize the resources of PARC effectively. In addition, Xerox did not even attempt to leverage the resources of PARC across different markets. Now remember, this is because Xerox viewed itself fundamentally as an office equipment company. So Xerox's interests in computers was limited to applications in the office and corporate markets. Xerox had absolutely no interest in making computers for other potential markets, such as home users or educational users, or even as expensive high-end toys for hobbyists. From the very start, the Alto computer was conceived as a piece of office equipment only. And by ignoring all these other potential applications and other potential markets for the technology, Xerox lost an opportunity to leverage the resources that it had created at PARC more effectively. Again, the company that eventually did take advantage of this omission by Xerox was Apple. Apple's leadership and dominant market share in the early years of the personal computer industry was not primarily due to the corporate market or the office market, which were actually fairly late adopters of personal computing technology. Rather, Apple's early dominance of the personal computer industry was due to its responsiveness to the needs of a wide variety of markets for personal computing technology, including not only the office market, but also other markets that were earlier adopters of the technology, such as the home market, the educational market, and the hobbyist market. Now, if Xerox had taken a broader view of the personal computer and what it could be and what markets it could serve in the way that Apple did, then Xerox might have been more effective at leveraging the Alto more effectively across a wide range of markets, because it would have been clearer earlier that there really was a market for this thing. But Xerox didn't do that, because Xerox viewed itself primarily as an office equipment company, and so was really uninterested in the computer for any other potential application.